So welcome everybody once again to session 5 of Succeed in 2021. This is a 5 session planning session that we started on the 31st. 31st was a personal review to be done in your own time. I supplied some questions, but from New Year's Day, we've been meeting every day for an hour and just looking at various things, goal setting, decade dreaming, scheduling. And today we have our final session. We'll be looking at finances and money management. But I also wanted to, first of all, start by talking through um, some of the other sheets in the planner that we haven't spoken about already. Either for those of you who already have the planner or those of you who are thinking of getting the planner. So the sections we've already discussed, we looked at the reflection pages. We did that in session 1. In session 2, we looked at becoming pages and decade dreaming, and those are all kind of about envisioning your future. Um, and then we did the schedule pages yesterday, and the day before we did the project pages, and we talked about the importance of making your goals projects, and that's how goals are best achieved when you make them projects. And I talked about how many times people don't make progress because they just make goals, but they don't put any action plans around them. So those are the pages we've already discussed. And then I wanted to share a few of the other pages that we're not going to have time to talk about in much detail, but I just wanted you guys to know a little about it. So the planner has family management pages as well. To be honest, I don't actually use these pages as much as I did when my kids were smaller, but I keep it in the planner because I think it would be really helpful for people with children at a different life stage, maybe children who are younger. Um, so when my kids were really small, one of my priorities was giving them a lot of exposure. And what I used to do was I used to plan half terms, holidays, different activities I was going to take them to, museums. We are going to go to, I don't think there's any museum in London that my children haven't been to. Half-term activity centers, library events, just different things that I could, Epping Forest to investigate tadpoles, all sorts of crazy things that we did. But it was important to me to just get them, rounded and interested and curious about the world. So planning family activities was important to me at that life stage. So I've kept that in for people who have younger families who perhaps want to start thinking when you make goals around your family at the beginning of the year, maybe just keeping an eye on activities and things you want to do, things you want to expose your children to. For those of you who are married or single, there's a date night tracker. And again, I kept that in for fun because I think that um, a part of what the planner is there to do is to incentivize you to attend to key parts of your life. And certainly for those of us who are married, we know how easy it is to neglect our marriage. There's so many things going on, work, kids. It's very, very easy to kind of lose each other in the midst of all that. So a date night tracker is kind of a prompter for you to think, oh wow, maybe a few weeks have gone and we've not really done anything together as a couple. And so I always encourage people to try and do something at least once a month as a couple. Obviously we're in lockdown, but I think obviously in lockdown there are things that you can still be creative. You can make a meal to have together when the kids are in bed. You can watch a movie together. There's still one or two things if you're creative that you can do when you're even during lockdown. So I think really important to just keep that in mind. And for those of you who are single, I think it's a great way of kind of keeping track of who you're meeting, whether you're meeting any men, what you think about the men, where you went with them, how you're interacting with them. In the book, really, my book for singles, really, I talk a lot about the importance of reflecting on dates when you go on dates. So your date night tracker is kind of a great way to keep track of who you're meeting. And then there's the holiday and travel plans sheet again. Um, Pre-COVID, Normally, uh, beginning of year, I always encourage people to think about where they're planning to go. If even if they're not planning to travel out of the country, if they're planning to have maybe a holiday or a break, in the country, it's always good to think through it, to plan it. Sometimes we go on holiday and we just end up, sleeping throughout the holiday, shopping throughout the holiday, and not doing anything interesting at all. And it's a travesty to go to a new country and all you know are the shopping malls there. So, always making time to think through before you go. Okay, what are the maybe the what's the city famous for? What's it known for? Getting some culture in. First time we were in New York with the kids, we went to Central Park. We went to Trump Towers. I don't know why now, but we went to Trump Towers. We went to Museum of Modern Arts in New York. So I mean, we got to really know the city. So just thinking through and planning, um, um, each place that you go means that you can get most value out of it. So those pages are there for that, to help you do that. And then the second set of family management pages are kind of about helping you to meal plan and put a routine around your housekeeping tasks. So you can see, for example, the housekeeping page has rows with Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So those little figures there, those little alphabet letters represent different days of the week. So it's just helpful to just maybe do certain things each week, and just put them down on here as a way of kind of tracking your housekeeping, whether you're single or married. I'm sure you want to keep your home and your environment neat and tidy. And the meal plan, again, it's just to help you plan your meals. I mean, um many of us, we end up eating rice and stew every day, and the reason why is because we don't really plan our meals. We take some time really just to you could actually only just use one page. You could have this a menu that you use all week, but because you're eating, sorry, that you use every week, the same menu, but because you've planned it so that you have something, um a set meal on a set day, there's actually variety in your meal, in your menu, and you can end up not eating the same thing for a whole week, or only eating the same thing twice in a week. But you've planned it so there's variety, and you can use that menu throughout the year. But it's just to help you think through it. And for those of you who are calorie counting, there's a section for that. And then lastly, we have the contacts pages. So this is just to help you keep a track of your website passwords. I don't know whether you're like me, I come up with all sorts of fancy passwords, but when it's time to get back into the website, I can't remember what it is. So this is a great way of kind of tracking your username and passwords. And for those of you who maybe I know a lot of us don't really write down contacts anymore because we have them on our phone. But there are a couple of contact sheets in the planner for those who are interested. Okay, so let's go on to our main section tonight. So we're going to be talking about, I'm going to talk quickly about growth pages, then we're going to go into finances. So the other page that I put in the planner that is really important for me, is the growth pages. And I think it's important that we make a plan for growth each year. We all, want to get better at something, improve at something, learn something, grow in a particular area, but transformation doesn't just happen. It's important that we make a plan for growth, and we change as we learn, grow, and do new things. So, they say you grow to the extent of new places you go, new people you meet, and the knowledge that you acquire. So, being intentional about factoring this into your life and to your schedule is important. If at the end of 2021 you're going to be different than you were at the beginning of 2021, if you're going to know stuff you didn't know at the beginning of 2021, you need to have a plan, intentional plan for growth. um, so the growth pages invite you to look at resources you will consume each month for spiritual, personal, or professional growth. So we're looking at this page. Each month has 4 columns, so it gives you um, something to focus on for each week. Of course, you don't have to learn a new resource each week. You might just choose, 1 or 2 resources to focus on, maybe a book to read. Some people say, okay, I'm going to read a book each month this year. Fantastic. Put it down on there. Or I'm going to attend a conference every quarter or whatever. This is just a good way to incentivize your growth and to track your growth. Um, so make a plan for the areas you want to grow in or gain knowledge in. Document it to keep yourself accountable. So if, for example, at the beginning of the year, you said you're going to read a book, you know, each month, or you're going to attend a conference every quarter, when you do your monthly review or you do your quarterly review, you should go to your growth pages and also see how you're doing in those areas. So, either, well, this year I'm stagnant, I'm not growing because I'm not investing in the resources I said I would, or, oh, actually, I'm doing quite well. Maybe you said you were going to read a book a month, but you're reading, a couple of books a month or whatever. Yeah. So make a plan for growth. It's important, um, to be intentional about it. They say that, I think they say an hour's reading a year, sorry, an hour's reading a day over um, um, 2 to 3 years is equivalent to a university degree in terms of the amount of information that you pick up. So just imagine how many areas you could grow or develop in if you were simply to give an hour or two a day, to growth. And there's so many areas um, so many ways to get information without even opening a book now. There are audio books, so you don't even have to read a book. You can listen to a book. So um, important to give some attention to that. Okay, so let's go to our um, focus for today, which is finances and money management. And I guess the most important thing to start with is to say, have a vision. It's important to have a vision for your finances. When we're talking about goals, I talked about the importance of having SMART goals, and SMART being just using the letters in the word SMART, goals that are specific, measurable, achievable, realistic, and time bound. And many of us say we want to be rich, but I want to be rich is like pie in the sky. you know how rich is rich, how do you quantify that? So it's important for us to, instead of just thinking one day I'll be rich, one day I'll be wealthy, one day my debt will be paid off. One day never comes, because it's just a pipe dream. So have a vision for your finances. Be clear about how much you want to have. How much actually is wealthy to you? How much is it that you're looking to acquire, either for retirement or for your nest egg, or for your retirement? How much do you want to have? um, if you are depending on the government pension for when you retire, God forbid that any of us we'll have to one day decide, well, whether it's heating, we're going to have one, or light in our house. But that's what happens when we don't have a vision for our finances. And it's not what's the word, it's not avarice or greed to have a vision for your finances. It's actually irresponsible not to have a vision for your finances, especially for a lot of people who are here, who are women, who are mothers, who have children, who have people dependent on you. Not having a vision for your finances, not having a plan for your finances, is actually irresponsible. So it's important for you to be clear about how much you want to have. So I'm not saying that everybody on here should want to be a millionaire, but certainly everyone in here should begin to think about, how much will I need to retire on? If I'm out of work for a few months, um, is there something in place for my family to be able to, survive on? Those are the sorts of questions you need to ask yourself to help you begin to determine how much you want to have. And then to think also about by when. By when do you want, you know, whatever it is that you're looking to acquire? Remember what we said in the first session. We said we typically overestimate how much we can achieve, uh, overestimate how much we can achieve in a year and underestimate how much we can achieve in 10 or 20 years. So we typically overestimate how much, sorry, I seem to have missed out underestimate in that quote. So we typically overestimate how much we can achieve in a year, and we typically underestimate how much we can achieve in 10 or 20 years. Certainly, when we're talking about wealth accumulation, time is your friend. And they say that if you start saving um, 200 pounds or $200 at the age of 20, by the time you're 50, you'll be a millionaire. That's 30 years time. And actually, a lot of people can save that kind of money without real inconvenience. And what is the key to accumulating that kind of wealth? Actually, it's just time. But trying to save a million when you start at 50 is a totally different ball game, because time is well, let me not say time is no longer your friend, but the amount you are closer to retirement, so you have maybe 10, 15 years, 20 years maybe to accumulate that kind of money. And it's a totally different kettle of fish. So remember, when we're talking about finances, thinking long term is a bonus. But it's important when we're talking about smart goals to begin to think about how much it is that you want to, um, save, raise, accumulate, or whatever, for retirement, or, for your rainy day, or whatever, or what you want to be your net worth. And then it's also important to think about what your strategy is, because it's one thing to say, I want to be a millionaire, or I have £100,000 in my bank account. But what is your strategy for getting the money? It's not going to land there, by praying or by having faith. There's another thing that many of us as Christians do. We believe God is looking at us, to manage the resources and the things that He's given us. So it's important to have a strategy for this wealth that we want to create or we want to accumulate. So is it going to be in savings? For a lot of people, when you're not going to be able to amass a lot of wealth simply by savings, you can probably accumulate a decent amount of money, but it's highly unlikely that you can accumulate extraordinary amounts of money just by saving. Um, so important to start thinking about investments, stocks and shares, property, and other assets. I'm not a financial advisor. I'm just giving you information to get you thinking and to get you brainstorming, and looking at what other resources you're going to access, and to speak to people who are more knowledgeable in this area. But certainly, you need to, once you begin to think about, this is the kind of money that I would need to raise, to begin to think about what your strategy will be. And this is why we're talking about goal setting here, because it's important for us to move from pipe dreams and desires to strategies and plans. And that's why we're doing what we're doing today. And of course, business income. When you're on a salary, your salary is what your salary is. It will always be limited. But business income can have no limit, depending on what it is that your business is. Okay, so what I want to look at as we close, is I want to look at managing the finances with your planner. And quite a number of ladies have asked concerning this: how do you use your planner to manage your money? So we're going to look at that now. So for those of you who have the planner, you will know that there are planner sheets, and they're right at the end, and there's actually a section for them But once again, I would encourage you to bring your budget into your month. So instead of keeping all your budget sheets at the end, for those of you who have wiro bound, you don't really have that option. But those of you who have binders, you can take your budget sheets from the end of, from that section where they're in, and intersperse them in each month, right? So that each month you're grappling with your budget as you plan, your month. Um, so it's important, if you're going to be on top of your money, in charge of your money, that you plan your money and that you budget your money. Um, it never fails to amaze me that a lot of people don't budget. Even if you budget loosely, it's better to budget loosely. I have a vague budget you're working with than to have no budget. So we have a passion weekend, a marriage enrichment weekend that we run, um, annually at TLC. And at TLC, and I remember doing one years ago when we're still at Trinity Chapel, actually. I think probably like year 3 or 4 when we were doing that. It was a passion of mine. I used to do quite a lot around financial planning um, as a breakout session. And I was really humbled. So I met somebody after, who had been away for several years, and um, met him again. And he's, now very wealthy. And he said to me, he said, Pastor B, you're the first person that taught me financial management. I mean, I was blown off myself. He said, your session at the Passion Weekend was my first exposure to financial management that got me thinking about, what I wanted to do for my family and how I wanted to provide for them. So having a budget is absolutely essential. So I remember another couple um, who said, "Oh, Pastor B, we just believe God. So when the salary comes, we just blow it, and then we just spend what we need to spend, and then we believe God for the rest of the month." And I was almost like putting my hand on my head that how can a married couple with children organize their finances like that? It's totally amazing to me. So if you have a family, as a single person, you can take some risks. When I was single, once my money comes, I go to the shops, I spend all the money, and I just keep maybe like 20 pounds. I know that I'm going to just be eating Frosties, for the rest of the month. And I'm okay because I'd rather look good than have money in the bank. But you can't do that, when you're a married woman, or you have children, things change. So, um, you know, being able to know what your key outgoings are as a family, putting money aside for that, and making sure that your basics, are covered before you start splurging, on, expenses and stuff is really, really key. So it's important to know how much is coming in and how much is coming out. And it can even be complicated for people who are married, because sometimes couples are not transparent with each other financially. I know some couples where actually the woman doesn't know what the man earns. So obviously, if you're in that kind of setup, it's hard for you to know, um, to manage your budget as a household. But it's really, really key, that as much as it's possible, you try to do that. I know some couples that apportion things. Okay, maybe the husband pays for the mortgage, and then the wife is responsible for the household bills, and stuff like that. People have different things that they do. But I strongly believe that the best way, if you can wangle it as a couple, is to have a corporate management of your money. That means all the money that comes into the household is our money, and we manage it for the family. Although, of course, um, individuals can have their own allowances and things like that, but this is not a couples management session, so I'm not going to go into that in detail. But absolutely important that you know how much is coming in and how much is going out. If you don't do that, you can't budget properly. And then you need to keep an eye on what you're spending on. Where is the money going? um, because it's not unusual for sometimes a couple can earn um, six figures between themselves, but still be broke at the end of each month, still have big bills, still have a lot of debt, still have credit card, debt. So important to look at what are you spending on, what is taking your money, and you cannot know that if you don't have a budget. Okay. Once you know what you're spending on, what is going out, then you can begin to look versus what is coming in. Then that is the only way you'll be able to know where is there fat that is trimmable. And when I say fat, it's like stuff you're spending on that you don't need. Um, Sometimes we're spending more than we're bringing in, and you can only survive that way for so long, unless it's a God endeavor. Sometimes God asks you to do certain things that He's going to pay for. That's different. And you step out into those things in faith. But if you know it's not that kind of endeavor, and it's just money that's not been managed properly, money that's been wasted, then it's a recipe for trouble sooner or later. So I know this sounds really simple, and we would think that everybody would do it, but it's um, sadly not a well practiced discipline. Yeah. So the planning sheets are to help you um, look at your projected versus actual spending. So what does that mean? Projected means what you expect to spend each month. Okay. So your mortgage or your rent, there should be a set amount you're paying each month. Your council tax, all there should be set amounts, but sometimes they waver, right? So important also to put the projected versus the actual. So you might budget to spend £200 on food, but you're actually spending £400 a month on food. So put that. If there's a difference between what you budgeted and what you actually spent, if you budgeted, oh, you're going to eat out maybe once a month, and you just budgeted £50 for eating out, but you're actually spent £200, then there's an issue. So part of financial management is being financially transparent and honest with yourself. If you are spending money on things you didn't budget for and you're not recording it, then you cannot be on top of your finances. You're still in denial to some point. And we've all been there at times, where you just close your eye, you buy the shoe, you buy the bag, you're like, I'll figure it out later on. But you've got to be honest with yourself when you're making those kind of purchases, to be thinking about, okay, so how is this going to be paid for in the scheme of things in the budget. Okay. And then after planning your budget, you have to monitor your budget. That means you have to keep an eye on the spending. So we plan, this is how much we're going to spend. Then we have to keep an eye, as I said, on how much we're actually spending. Unknown caller. Sorry. I don't know why I'm always getting these calls in the middle of these of these seminars. I always get at least one call. Very peculiar. Um, and then so record your spending. Record your spending means, especially while you're still trying to get a handle on your budget and stuff like that, keep a record of every single amount that you spend. If you went to, stop at a petrol station and bought a Mars bar for 89p, put it down there, because when you keep a record of all that you're spending, you'll be absolutely amazed at how where money, is going. So there are lots of great things you can use. There are lots of apps that you can use that help you to that you can put, if you can discipline yourself, that you can put what you're spending in, and at the end of the week or at the end of the month, it'll actually show you what you're spending, your money on. It will put it in columns for you. You can also use the tracker sheet. So I've put it on the side here. You can put the tracker sheet. You can use those 3 rows at the top to keep a record of your spending, or you can use a money book, right? So on the website there's a money book, and this for me was really, really helpful when I first started. You can see here I've got I've got my promise basket quotes in there. But what I really like about it is that it's got sections for your card and your ID here. Um, and then this bit, I normally put receipts and stuff for, which is really handy if you ever need to kind of return stuff to the store. But here, let me make sure I've not put anything dodgy here that I don't want you guys to see in my record book. Um, okay, so this is from 2019 actually. So you can see I put here, green out breakfast. I went to breakfast. I bought somebody premier conference tickets. I put that there, Uber. And it's great because I found this useful because it kind of became like my wallet. And what I love about it is that you can immediately you're spending the money as you're bringing the card out. It is really cool also because it has this little pen loop. You can immediately jot down what you're spending, because sometimes I'll just be lazy to bring out the tracker, put in the code in my pen and all of that. But if as I'm bringing the card out, I'm also, I can just jot it down in the notebook. I can keep the receipt. It's very, really, really useful. And I'm actually going to resurrect it this year. So for those of you who are interested, it's on the website, and the notebook is replaceable. So once you're done with it, you can just take it out and put a new notebook in. So it's one that you can use for years, and it's like leather look. I think it looks quite good. It doesn't look cheap. You could, of course, just get yourself a small notebook if you want to do it that way and just make a record. So it's not about what you use. This is convenient, but you can, of course, find other alternatives yourself. The most important thing is to record your spending so that you have a record of what it is that you're spending money on. And you can actually sit down, maybe at the end of the week, at the end of the month, and track what it is that you spent your money on, and then to make adjustments elsewhere for overspend. So if, for example, you spent more in an area than you plan to, then you need to kind of look at where you can cut back. So maybe you're going to go to Aldi instead of Tesco for the rest of the month to make up for overspend, in some area. But just keeping in touch with what you're spending means that you can make those kind of adjustments. Another thing that's really important is keeping an eye on your regular outgoings. So things like a lot of us, how we live now electronically, um, a lot of things are going out by direct debit, a lot of things are going out by standing order. But it also means that there's money going out of your account that you may not be mindful of. So your insurances, for example, your household insurance, your car insurance, when they're due, if you don't review them, these companies, they make money from our inertia, right? So if, let's say, your car insurance was 25 pounds a month when you took it out, next time that it comes to renewal, it's not going to be 25 pounds, it's going to be 28 pounds, and the year after that is going to be 32 pounds per month. That's how they do it. They rely on our inertia, and that is why comparison websites are your best friend. um so making sure that you put your renewal dates in your schedule. So for example, if your insurance is due at the end of November, put a reminder mid-November to yourself so you can go onto comparison websites beforehand. You can look at your alternatives, and switch if necessary. um I just switched our house insurance. Um, when it was due for renewal, they quoted us, the automatic renewal was over £300 more than we paid the year before. There was absolutely no reason for it. I actually went onto comparison website. I got a much cheaper quote, even from them. So when I called them up, I told them, I said, look, I have quotes that beat even this quote that you gave me, that your comparison website has come up with a cheaper quote from you, and I found cheaper quotes than the comparison website has quoted for you, which was, I think there was almost like £200 difference between the comparison website quote from them than the one they put on my renewal. So the guy said, "Oh, it's beyond his pay grade. He can't honor that." So I said, "No problem. I'm canceling my insurance. I'm moving it." So make sure that you are reviewing your those kind of utilities, because you can end up easily squandering hundreds, sometimes thousands, When we moved home, I don't know how it worked out that my husband had Sky on his account. I had Sky on my account as well. We had been paying, we had both been paying for Sky for 2 years before we discovered that he was paying for Sky on my on his account. I was paying for Sky on his. Meanwhile, there's only one TV we're using in the sitting room that has Sky, you know. And so we had to, really slog it out with Sky. They were saying it's not their problem, this and that, in order for us to get 2 years worth of subscriptions back. So it's really, really important that you review these things, regularly. um, and one of the ways you can do that is by checking your monthly statements. When your bank accounts come, don't just file them, and put them away. Make sure that you go through, because even banks make mistakes. Make sure that you check. Make sure that they haven't. Sometimes even I use Fantastic Services for my gardening. Sometimes they charge me twice. For one particular service, I have to go back to them. So just make sure that you are reviewing your statements, you are reviewing your outgoings, because you could be losing money if you don't do that. And lastly, schedule a monthly, quarterly, and an annual review. I know this sounds so boring. Like, who wants to do this? Um, but if you can't do a monthly, which I would highly recommend, try and do at least a quarterly review. Just you know schedule a morning or an afternoon where you're just going to go through your bills, quickly look through your utility payments, compare them with your schedule, look at where you're overpaying, look at where perhaps your spending is more than what you budgeted for, so that you can course correct and all of that. But for those of you who are really serious about getting on top of your money, quarterly is not frequent enough. Monthly, if you spend an hour, maybe last Saturday of each month or whatever, just having a quick look through your accounts, looking through your statements, making sure there are no odd payments you don't understand, or things you've been charged for that once you, or just things like that. It will really, really help you, and it'll help you understand, okay, where am I spending? Where can I cut back on? What can I do better to stay on top of my finances? So I'm not really going to talk a lot about savings and stuff like that, because this is not a financial management session as much as a session to help give you tools to manage your finances. Okay, financial management sessions in themselves are quite another thing. And we simply don't have time to do that today. But I hope that this has helped, in terms of things within the planner that you can do, um, to kind of keep on top of your money and manage it better.